Another weekly candle just closed. And this is what Ether is doing. The price came back down to test the moving average and it is there. What can you see in the price of Bitcoin with this weekly close? Because it is important to see where it is with respect to the altcoin market or say one of the large cap alts like XRP. What can you identify here? This is a weekly chart. Yes, it is true. You'll have to slowly zoom in on a 3-day and a daily to see if all of them aligns well. And if that does, okay, short term goes in that direction. What is that direction for XRP? What is that direction for the altcoin market? This is what we are going to discuss here, and it's going to be short and quick because we understand that the market is showing you signals. Some of them are looking really positive, but some does not look that positive. We'll break all of that down here in the Scientific Investor family. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get to learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. When people like this start to critique crypto or Bitcoin, it kind of gives you an idea where we are going because they believe the banks and the governments are handling money very well. So now you understand where the guy comes from. So that's World Economic Forum advisor giving you the idea of what he thinks about crypto. And it kind of shows you like, okay, these big guys, they really don't want this community to succeed because they cannot control you at that point. But understand, most of the big guys, the corporates, are now looking at central banks and their rate cuts. Can we see at least one rate cut, or is it going to be 2 rate cuts? So the thought process here is as the rates reduce, the cost of money reduces. This then allow companies to expand with lower cost, start hiring more. But they wouldn't actually go for it just with a 5 basis point cut or a 10 basis point cut. They would wait for further decrease. So if you are following me here on Twitter, you are watching whatever I'm actually looking through. So if you haven't done that yet, you can actually look at this. Now, we'll get in to the technical side of things to see, is it looking positive or are we going into the negative territory? So before that, if you haven't smashed that like button yet, hit that one. Now, let's jump in here. The Bitcoin chart actually shows you that the weekly close had some negative volume. The price action was also decent to the downside. So as of now, you don't have anything to say. The bulls are taking the control back. So that's on a weekly. But what you can recognize is the weekly direction is to the upside on the moving average. The 3-day direction is starting to saturate to the downside. The daily direction is already to the downside. So when you zoom in, what you get to understand is that the short-term pattern is now trying to reverse back because the top was here. But on a 3-day, you're watching that it is slowing down, it's coming back down. So this is the time where you go back to look at what we have done in the recent past. One of the possibilities is things like this. You have the saturated move where the price go back up and it tests a resistance. Now, whether that's going to be a super hard resistance to break or not, we'll have to follow through and see. Because one thing which is super important is the trend line. We are still above this trend line and we're still respecting that trend line. 2, the price action itself is starting to show bulls are entering into this market. Now take XRP for that matter. Now, even though this is the biggest asset in my portfolio, I'm looking at this saying, okay, the weekly is looking downside. The price is below the moving average. So it's adding pressure on the moving average. I go on a 3-day. The 3-day is showing me the same direction. I go on a daily. The daily is like, okay, I'm saturated. I'm trying to round back up. So the only thing positive is that XRP has huge utility. So that's on the fundamental side. On the technical side, the daily chart is trying to reverse. But macro on a shorter horizon, the weekly, the 3-day, it is showing you that bears are in control. Or easy way is to say, okay, this range is still highly active, where bears had the control. This is just a consolidation here. Unless you see this breaking to the upside, and as of now, chances are that you may come back down. Now, I would like to see this coming back down actually, so that we test this support and then take off, where we would break this pattern. It's been a long time we've been waiting for this. If we do get a breakthrough this, that is going to be positive. But before that, doing such a move would be better. Now, most of us won't like it because that wouldn't look good, right? On a short-term scenario. But if you do zoom a little bit out and say, okay, that is going to be a double bottom and I would like to see that, it's great. Now, one of the reasons why I'm saying that is when you come into the altcoin side of things and you're looking at the weekly close, you can actually see one thing. The volume to the price action gives you an idea that we were trending down and we had a decent day of volatility. And if you look at the last week of volatility, the price action was like 14%. And this time around, it's like 8%. So it's kind of muted. 1. 2, the day or the week was actually dominated by sellers. Now, those sellers managed to push the price a little bit down. So that shows you with little volume, more price action on the selling side. So the activity on the selling side is heavy. 1. The liquidity to the downside is also heavy. So now we're at a point in altcoin market where it is showing more money is entering into the alt market. If you put in the same indicators, which we've been talking about, discussing through, we'll have to look at this and say, okay, the 3-day chart, the MACD is showing you it has already done a severe correction. It is now trying to bounce back up. You go on a weekly and it shows you I'm crossing to the downside and I'm moving down. But what we have seen recently from last June is that it is that point where you have already made the bottom. You may actually retest the bottom, but you will go back up. So this was your bottom. You retested the bottom and then you went back up. Now, what are we doing? If we already got a bounce, yeah, we would have come back down to retest it. As of now, we have not done that. Now, put things into the context because this is where people misunderstand the short and micro movements in the market. Unless you understand where you are in that market cycle, short-term volatility is going to squeeze you out. So this is the short-term structure of the market. This is where exactly you are and what you're doing. You are either playing out with the moving average here or here. Higher odds suggest that you are most likely here, which means the biggest impulsive move of this cycle is coming. And it's way, way, way earlier than you think. Because some people anticipate this is going to be in 2025. Some people anticipate that it is going to be by November, December this year. Whichever perspective you go by, you need to look through the history as well. The total consolidation before that break was 160 days back then. So here we are already 160 days. Put that into perspective. Yes, that's total consolidation within two micro corrective movements. Great. Now, if you want to break that down, what would you do? You first look at, okay, what was the first correction like? That was 100 days. So you're looking at the first one. It was like 70 days. So it took less time. What was the next consolidation? That took like 50 days. Fine. Here we are around 77 days. So we are taking more time on the second one. So it's a bit of mix here in terms of timing. But look at the volatility range. After the first consolidation, when the price went up, it did 87% to the upside. Here around 81%. That's close enough. So if you do look at from the bottom till that local top, that was like 448% to the upside. And here we are 180% to the upside. You can actually see how consolidated or coiled up the market is, because the structure itself gives you an idea of where it came from, where it went to. The exact same thing is playing out here. Where you came from and where you're going to. This is that direction where, in yesterday's video when we talked about Raul Pal actually highlighted this is the banana zone. Now, yes, that's his wording, but I would say, yeah, the higher momentum phase is what we are waiting for. Is that going to happen in next month, the month after that? I'm not sure, but the momentum and the volume was actually showing much, much, much better signs here. And I was actually anticipating this is going to end in 2 months from that point, which was from Feb. I was really looking at top for this time. Again, timing is the hard part and I'm wrong. But the price structure is not invalidated. The price structure is still the same. There is nothing in the market on a macro showing you that you're going back down to these points. If you do look at the moving average and the history, this is where you come back and that's where you bounce back up. So the altcoin market is clearly showing you which direction you are headed. Now, if you are scared of the corrective moves in the market, just put things into perspective. The first one, 28%. The second one, 31%. The next one, 35%. The next one, 60%. So you can actually see the downside is increasing with each leg up. So put this into perspective. Here, the first drop was 19%. The second drop was 30%. Fine. So you're going to see 35% drop. You're going to see 60% drop. Which means if you're panicking right now, you'll have to buy Snuggies soon. Because you'll see 30, 40, 50% drops. But it won't impact you and you won't have to buy the Pampers if you are riding it from here. If you're buying after one breakout and you're late till that point that you're buying the top, then you're going to see that massive drawdowns on your portfolio. Now, yes, if you're levered, the 30% is 90% if you're 3x. The 30% is 60% negative if you're 2x. So levered is a whole different game where the risk and volatility is going to be much, much higher. So coming back to the point, if you do look at the market and understand that historically speaking, the market gives you an idea, a clear perspective of which direction you're going, use that for your advantage. On a monthly, when that crossed to the downside, it was telling you something. And that was kind of still a good time to exit the market, right? That was still kind of a good time to exit the market. Here you are looking at the exact same thing going on the opposite direction, saying this was the best time to buy. A lot of people did not agree back then. Now, maybe they will. Maybe, I'm not sure. But look at the monthly close. The monthly close shows you it did try to come back down, and that's healthy. That's healthy. Why? You didn't actually see a lot of those volatility which we saw, like 1 month 30% down, another month 31% down. So we actually got that 1 month with 30% down. And if you look at those corrective moves, and if history plays by itself, you have 1 month to the downside and max 1 month of nothing and then up. 1 month of downside and then next month up, which means the most on the price action to do nothing is going to be this month. If you play out the history and the average asset is, yeah, there should be something this month. If you say, okay, this is going to be that worst case scenario of the previous price action history, okay, this month you see very muted reaction, just like this particular candle we are talking about, which kind of shows you, okay, you may need a ton more patience this month. And if you get a breakthrough next month, it's positive. But yeah, obviously we still have 3 weeks to see how this monthly candle ends. So you need patience for that for sure. But on the monthly, look at your direction. This is something which should override anything and everything you saw on the micro charts. Not a lot of people look at this and say, I understand where we are. Because let me make myself clear. When you see the macro changing, just changing, and you have these kind of drops, that's the biggest opportunity you have. And especially when that's happening below a macro range, you're confused. The moment it's above, you're not. So this is that point of history which shows you had an opportunity here. And if you missed that stuff, now the market is giving you another chance. When the price is going higher here, you're not watching the RSI going lower. It's following the direction of price on a monthly. What else you need? Like the short-term price action is going to be depressing. Completely agreed. The way the market is showing you whatever it has done and where it has gone in this cycle compared to the last one, it kind of gives you that ability to say, okay, we went up into the overbought territory, we came back down, that was fine. But the idea is we went back up immediately on a weekly chart. So each candle, you need 7 days of patience to see how one candle closes. Now we just saw the last candle close here. It was completely muted, right? Remember, we had a thought process where we actually went through and detailed the checkmate pattern. We discussed that in the yesterday's video, right? The checkmate pattern, you come down, you hit one level, you cannot break that level, you bounce back. That is known as checkmate. So here that's going to be a bullish checkmate. The bears came in for the war and the bulls say checkmate. Right? That's what the pattern actually suggests you. As of now, you go back and you want to actually look through anything and everything which came close to that. Again, that's something like this. Now, what's similar? What's different, right? We need to know that. The high liquidity end to the downside, a long wick, that was still active there. You went back up. It was not one candle of checkmate bursting to the upside. It was literally a lot of candles coming back up with volatility. And each time you go back down to the moving average, someone comes in and buys a ton more and pushes the price back to the upside. So guys, if you received value and you haven't smashed that like button yet, please consider doing that. And if you would like to see hundreds of other assets, what they're doing on their macro, their targets, the breakout calls, if I open a trade, you want to see that, fine. Look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below in YouTube or in the bio of Twitter. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.